Welcome to the Orchestra Teacher Podcast, everyone. It has been a month hiatus since our last episode, and this is episode 40 of our podcast today. We have a very special guest coming to us from just down the road from where I am here in Cobb County. Special person, we got to spend some time together this summer, and we're going to talk about that. Mr. Adam Gresham. Adam, welcome to the Orchestra Teacher Podcast.
Hey, Charles. How are you? It's good to be here.
Awesome. We're so glad to have you, and really excited about what we're going to be able to talk about today. We have, we both started school August 1st because we both teach in Cobb County here in the same district. New school for me, new school for you. And this is also Adam's first year teaching orchestra.
So, sure is.
So those that are out there listening that are the non-string majors, I don't call them non-string players because now you play. So that's awesome. So the non-string majors, this is what we're talking about. So Adam is a percussionist. He's in his 7th year teaching, but first year at Barber Middle School here in Cobb County, Georgia, where I teach as well. And he's taught in Gwinnett County. Is that right?
Yeah, I did a year out in Carrollton, and then 5 years in Gwinnett.
Oh, wow. Okay. Cool. And so you did your undergraduate at Georgia State here in Atlanta. Yep. And then you got a master's. From where did you get your master's?
I went to the American Band College. It's through Central Washington University, but it's run kind of out of Southern Oregon.
Cool. Yeah, and I know that's kind of a specialized school, obviously.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your experience in that program?
Yeah, it's really it's a really cool program. You know, I was kind of it was during my time teaching at Norcross, and I was in my 2nd year of teaching at the time. I was like, I'm looking to get my master's, and one of the other band directors at the time was like, we should really do ABC, and kind of talked to me a little bit about it. But it's basically, you know, I kind of describe it as like Midwest for band directors.
Wow.
You know, it's a summer program, you know, 3 summers, and you go and instead of taking a bunch of coursework all the time, you basically sit in an auditorium and they bring in, you know, some of the best on every instrument. And they bring in Dr. Tim and they bring in, you know, all these kind of star-studded people to come and talk to you about instrument-specific pedagogy. And here's how to get better at this and this instrument and this technique. And you just get 3 years of like really, really good hands-on. Here's how to practically be a band director. And it's really cool.
Cool. And then, so you did that. When did you finish that, your master's?
I think I finished in 2020. Okay. I finished right in the middle of the pandemic. So I had to do my last year kind of online. And, we all struggled through that together.
We sure did. I just got to say, I'm so glad that, you know, we're getting back to normal, and it really is feeling like it used to feel. You know, you have a few kids out here and there, so that's definitely beneficial. And then tell us, so why did you want to do orchestra, or what drove you to orchestra? Yeah. You're like, oh no, these bows.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I was driving home last week, and I was kind of sitting in the car, and it's, you know, one of those times where you kind of reflect and look back, and I was like, you know, if you would have told college me that I was going to end up teaching middle school orchestra, I would have laughed in your face. You know, I grew up a band guy, a percussionist, and you know, got 2 degrees in music ed and focus in band. And then, you know, the reality is I was really happy being a middle school director. I taught high school, I taught middle school, and I've you know, designed and taught a whole curriculum of a multi-level music technology program. Done that in middle and high school too, and I really enjoyed what I was doing, but my wife teaches choir over at Harrison High School here in Cobb, and we live in Marietta, and I just kind of got tired of that. You know, sometimes it's 2 hours, sometimes it's a 3-hour commute.
Yeah.
And I started looking at, you know, trying to get closer to home, and I spoke with Chris Farrell, the fine arts coordinator for Cobb, and I said, hey, you know, can we have a conversation about what's going to be opening, what's going on? And he's like, well, we don't really have any movement happening right now in band, but we've got some orchestra positions, you know, and he and I know each other pretty well, and he kind of knows that I've done a little bit of everything. Yeah. And he's like, you know, you seem to be pretty adaptable and successful at whatever you do. I have an opportunity to do orchestra, would you want to try, a third thing? And I said, okay, sure. And
Yeah.
I kind of sat there and thought about it for a while, and I talked to my wife, and I was like, as a percussionist, I don't necessarily feel like this strong allegiance to band, other than, in middle and high school, percussion's kind of grouped with the wind players
Yeah.
because we have to be.
Right.
And I think probably it grew kind of organically out of marching band and the traditions of
Okay.
that. But
Sure.
the reality is there's just so much percussively in our training that I think is really kind of parallels the string pedagogy a lot more than it does the wind pedagogy.
Wow.
And so when it got down to it, I was like, okay, why not? As a percussionist, um, most of our training is like, here's a new thing to hold and play and pick up, and good luck. Learn the technique and play it at a really high level.
So so
Uh,
you're used to that. There's like, "Here's a violin, go."
yeah, yeah. So I was like, okay, well, this is just, here's another instrument, here's a new technique. Let's figure out how to do it.
Yeah. And so I met you for the first time, in Michigan,
Mhm.
University of Michigan, summer workshop, and, that was, all intensive, just
Yeah,
let's go, type of we was what 3 or 4 days,
yeah,
that we were there, and but I thought you did awesome, and the fact that you put yourself out there to do that, and part of that, what they called the string immersion track that they had there,
yeah.
was great. And then you did that for 3 days, and then you went one step further, and you did Bob Gillespie's workshop at Ohio State. And today is football Saturday, so I have to say, go Buckeyes, everybody.
Okay. Yeah. No,
but
it was one of those things that, we made the decision, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go interview for this job. And I got the position at Barber, and I kind of said, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I have to do it really well. And me and my wife talked about it, and talked to a couple different orchestra people in the area and said, hey, what do I need to do to prepare for this?
yeah,
Obviously I need to go get an instrument, and I bought a violin and kind of started practicing on my own, got out the essential elements book, and
yeah,
all right, let's go from line one. But I knew that wasn't gonna be enough, and so
yeah,
my wife said, all right, well, let's set aside some money, and it's going to cost a little bit, but we need to invest in this. This is a big change.
yeah.
So she's like, whatever you need to do, really, really supportive. Just whatever you
Great.
need to do,
That's
go do
great.
it, and make sure you can feel good
Yeah.
about teaching this year. So
So
it was great work.
what were some of the things like your big takeaways from the two workshops? I mean, there's probably a whole bunch of things, but what were some of like the huge points or the huge things that you just went, wow, I can do this.
It's interesting. I think because of my background in percussion, right? Like I
Yeah.
think just even getting the instrument before I went to the workshops, I was kind of sitting there going like, oh, okay, all right, like I've kind of figured this out, and I understand how to put the shoulder rest on and all that. I was like, all right, I can play. But the big thing from the workshops was I really was going to figure out what's the pedagogy? How do I sequence this? How would an actual string player who's done this before, how are they going to sequence this in a classroom? What's kind of the tried and true stuff? What do I need to look out for that, just the stuff I don't know that I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that like between Michigan and Ohio State, I kind of got a double helping of that. And it was cool, in Michigan, I did the string immersion track with you.
Mhm.
And then at Ohio State, Matt Radspinner,
Yeah.
did the string immersion track. So I kind of got like two different perspectives. And he had his little spin on a couple things, and you had your own little spin.
Hmm.
So between the two, I not only got what I was looking for and what I needed, but I also got, two or three different tips and tricks
Yeah.
on the same technique,
Yeah, the more tricks you can pull out of the hat, I tell you. That's that's what I love about going to ASTA or Midwest and going to the workshops is that you'll always bring back something new, and it's like even after my 27 years in the classroom, I'm like, wow, this is like totally new. I didn't even think about it that way. So yeah, yeah, I think that's awesome to have those different viewpoints for sure.
Yeah. And I think a secondary benefit was like probably at least half the time at both workshops was just reading sessions,
Yep.
and as a pretty much like a sixth grade violinist, I was sitting in there like, okay, all right, I'm still working on getting my bow straight. I'm still working on, just getting my second finger in the right spot, or
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff, like on the tape and
Yeah.
in that. And so just having to sit through, it almost felt like hazing at times where, sometimes I would go in and we'd be reading grade one. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm hanging. I'm playing this. And then we'd hit like a grade two or grade three. And I was like, all right, I just want to go home and cry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even imagine how challenging it would be, and to put myself in your shoes and say, okay, here's a trumpet, let's go, or percussion sticks. Like, I mean, to do that, it would be the same thing.
Yeah.
Probably worse off for me. I don't know. I mean, I've been doing this so long, but it sounds like you've really been able to grasp it. I bet you're not sixth grade anymore. You're probably way higher than that. Well, you're not giving yourself enough credit.
Well, it's trial by fire, right? And so
Yeah.
I think that stuff was really important to uh, just get time on the instrument. It was like morning sessions of here's how to set yourself up, here's how to do the basics, here's how to get better. And then the afternoon was like, all right, let's go apply it a lot.
Yeah.
And then, I come home and practice a little bit more. I did some private lessons with Jesse Fuchs,
Oh yeah.
who teaches in the county. And
Yeah.
she kind of reinforced some of that stuff. And now, I mean, and I think every teacher who's ever taught middle school really knows this intimately, is like, there's nothing that replaces spending 6 hours a day modeling for students over and over and over
Hmm.
again.
Hmm.
And so now it's like I can pick something up and go like, all right, hey, we're going to air, bow, and finger. I play, ready, here we go.
That's
Uh,
great. That's great.
and it's comfortable, so.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, what I saw you do was pretty miraculous as far as just the ability to do cello and bass and violin and viola. To be able to do all that. How's the alto clef for you?
It's coming along.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I was talking to a couple other people because there are some other non-string people that are in the county, and they all say the same thing, like, hey, alto clef takes time. At first I was sitting in my scores and writing in the
Yeah.
the viola part, just to make sure I wasn't staring at the score or feeling helpless in front of kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And you want to be able to you got to be quick. So
Yeah, but
yeah.
what I found that I'm a bigger guy and I've got pretty big hands, and so violin was really hard for me at first,
Sure.
and I've kind of especially just even playing F sharp to G, it's like
Right.
I've got to kind of fudge the fingers a little bit and move the second finger to play the third finger in
That's
tune.
right.
But I pick up a viola and it's like, oh, it's
That's
just like a
right.
tiny bit more space here.
Yeah.
This feels good.
Well, you get a big enough viola, and then you'll be stretching, right?
Yeah,
You could probably
yeah.
play a 16 and a half or 17,
Yeah, and I
if
think
you can find
I think
one.
the school I play on like a 15 and a half, and it's
Yeah.
like that is like, okay, this is nice. But the other thing too is like because that is I think that's like the elephant in the room for a lot of people. It's like, how's your alto clef? And I found that just with the sixth graders, like now that we're kind of getting past the stages of like, okay, let's get it out of the case. I put
Yeah.
the blanket back on it,
Yeah.
shut it. Like, we're finally like up in playing position, playing some pizzicato. We
Yeah.
just started the book actually yesterday,
Good. Okay.
first time, and we worked through like the first five or so lines and worked
Hmm.
through that sequence. And I'm just using the viola book every day. I'm kind of forcing
Oh,
myself to read
good.
along
That's a
with the
great
kids.
idea. That's a great idea. And
Yeah,
then
it helps.
when you get into I mean, obviously your seventh and eighth grade lit, like one of the nice things that a couple of publishers do. I know FJH does that a lot. So they'll have that third violin part in the score, and so
Yeah,
you can just be like, look it, and match that up. So sometimes that could be helpful.
that's saved me a few times. We're doing a Sumi Newbold piece right now. We're doing Viking, and she's got that third violin part, and it's not it's a little bit transposed at times too, right?
Yes, they have to, right? Obviously for C string stuff, but
Right, but it's like, okay, at least I can read the notes.
yeah, yeah, a lot of the notes are going to match up, so that's handy.
And I've also kind of, there's, I don't know if it's intentionally like this or I'm just kind of using it like this, but I've got really low viola numbers in
Mm,
eighth grade. So, sometimes that third violin part, I'm just, I've got 20 violins and I've got like six violas.
yeah,
And so I'm like, hey, I need four of you to learn the violin three part for this piece, and kind of rotating a couple kids there as
perfect.
well to kind of help beef some things up. Um,
Yep.
so
Yeah, I mean, it comes in handy, and unfortunately, not every publisher does that, but a lot of them have been doing that when, and it's definitely handy to have. Yeah,
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 for
yeah.
sure.
So, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges that you've been facing? I mean, obviously, it's the newness, but middle school's middle school, so that's a challenge in itself. We all know that.
Yeah.
But
Um, yeah, so far, honestly, it's a lot of it transfers, right? Because we're all still teaching music, and
yeah,
a lot of the concepts are the same. What I find more often than not in the rehearsal is, when I stood in front of a band, I could hear something and it was just instant. Like, oh, that clarinet is playing too sharp. We need to shade the bottom three fingers. We need to do this on the throat tones or whatever.
hmm
And I didn't have to think about it. And now it's like, okay, I'm hearing things come at me. I know it's not in tune. I know that this isn't right,
yeah,
but it's taking me, like 5 or 10 extra seconds mentally just to go, all right, what is the problem? How do I
yeah,
fix it? Okay, I know this is the problem, but what is the fix?
right,
Whereas
right,
before it was kind of natural.
yeah.
So just kind of finding some of that stuff happening a little bit.
hmm
But
That just
you know,
it does
it's
take time, and like I said, the more things you go to, the more groups you get to hear, and the more clinics you go to, that you're going to get all these tips and tricks, and it will be like more second nature, you
yeah.
know.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, the whole just the setup of the class is different. Like what band students need fundamentally, so much different than what string students need fundamentally.
hmm
Uh, and I found that even just in sixth grade, like um, I was going through the book this week, like I said, with my sixth grade kids, and in band, we would sit on that first page, for weeks, just trying to get the first 10 lines, the first 5 notes, and read them and play them and learn how to tongue. And yesterday, it's like, oh, we did that in 10 minutes. Because it's open strings, the note heads still have the letter names in there.
yeah, at the beginning,
It's
right?
like, all right, count it, say the letter names, pizzicato it, and say the letter names out loud. Great, good job. Next,
hmm
and so the pacing is just a little bit different.
Yeah,
Um, and then even in seventh and eighth grade, it's like we do some rhythm, we do a little bit of sight reading, and I can use rhythm to talk about bow distribution
hmm
and how different rhythms are going to affect where we end up on the bow. Do some technique things. I use a lot of I play, you play to just work on finding first finger, finding second finger, putting it into.
great.
And then, we jump into literature. It's like there's not as many things. I don't have to do lip slurs and articulation and just all, range extension and all this kind of different stuff that we have to do with band. It's like, oh, we're all here doing the same thing. We all read in concert pitch. This is great.
It's kind of nice. I was gonna say, like, no,
It is
you're
nice.
playing a C, but it sounds like a B flat. No, 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 no. Like I need, there's none of that going on. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I was certainly guilty as a band director of being one of those people that's like, how hard could it be? It's only three different things going on, and look, I mean, it's only a couple lines. It's like it's got its own challenges too. Like now what I find myself sitting there worrying about is like, okay, we're playing the C major scale, and you're still playing high two instead of low two. Oh, you're playing low two, but it looks like high two.
You
The
think you're
space
playing?
between first and third is not equal. Like, you can't just put it in no man's land,
Yeah,
second finger. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That's yeah, that's interesting, and it's always interesting to look at the beginning band and the beginning orchestra and how the band is going to sound so much better at first normally. And in my opinion, like they can excel faster, but then the strings take a while to catch up, and then
yeah.
eventually they meet each other. But it just sometimes it just takes a while.
But and it's funny because I actually I talked to a friend of mine who's a middle school band director on the way home. Most days we kind of talk shop and catch up, exchange stories of the day. And she's kind of right at the same spot. They just got through putting the instruments together and making their first sounds, and
Mm,
she's like, it just sounds like noise right now.
yeah,
It's unbearable.
yeah,
And I had the opposite. I was like, oh, it's funny because we got into the book for the first time, and we're up. It's on the shoulder, and we're playing. They're learning how to pizzicato, it sounds really good. And she's like, yeah, but Adam, they're open strings. And I was like, I know, it's great.
No fingers needed. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a different beginning of the year experience,
Yeah.
you know, and I think um, it was funny because I did a little bit of, kind of rote teaching. We did, I stole some stuff from band, right? So we do note flashcards, and they're
Mhm.
just index cards. And I stole this from Darcy Williams, who teaches band out in Texas. She just writes, has the kids write the staff and write the clef on an index card using the index card lines as help.
Oh,
And
cool.
then
Yeah.
they write in the note in their first five notes, and they flip it over and write the letter name. So I did the same thing, and I had them write like, D open or zero,
Sure.
E one. And so we did some of that. We did some rhythm at the beginning of the year, and then we were kind of in guitar position, learning where first, second, and third finger are. So now we got to the book and we got to the first page, and I was like, we've got a really long weekend this weekend. First, second, and third finger. You could probably play, guys, if you wanted to go home and practice. You could probably learn the first like 30 or 40 lines. I bet someone's going to come back and do it. And I would never say that to a band
Right.
student. I would never ever do that. But
Yeah.
I know, um, like the writing's on the wall. When we
Yeah.
get the bow going, we're going to hit the brakes pretty hard.
That's right. Yeah. 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 No, no, definitely. I mean, and we separate that right hand, left hand. So we teach the right hand for a while without the left hand, and then But the great thing is you can have class where you're doing some right hand stuff, you're doing some pizzicato, you're doing some music reading or whatever, and then you separate it all, and I mean you fill up your class time really fast. Unfortunately, it goes,
Yeah.
but when you do that. Are there any like strategies or philosophies or um, techniques or whatever that you definitely brought from your band teaching into your beginning string classroom, like or just
Yeah.
even ideas that most of us that have been teaching strings for a while or string majors never really would have thought about too much. Anything that you can think of?
Yeah. I think for me, probably because I don't know any better right now, but
Mhm.
a lot of what I'm doing, especially in sixth grade, is all very band based.
Mhm.
And so a lot of it is like I've got a whole set of different rhythm charts that just walk sequentially through, quarter notes all the way through 6/8 time and
Yeah.
all sorts of different stuff. And we just started that, day one. We did the note name flashcards. I do a lot of note reading drills. So you kind of think of like the math, like how many multiplication tables can you do in a minute?
Right.
There's 100 on a page. Like I print out and do a bunch of those just with the first five notes.
Sure.
And so we get
Repetition is
that kind of
important,
stuff going
and
to get the rhythm going.
yeah.
And it's interesting to me. I really think like looking the difference between strings and band, like the beginning, the first book is so much better and more well laid out for strings. Even down to the way it sequences taking away the note heads, or the letter names of the note heads.
Sure.
In band, you get it for the first 10 lines and you turn the page and good luck. And in strings, it's like, okay, we're going to put them on everything. Now we're going to put them on every other one, and we're going to ease you into it.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of stuff that I've just been doing just to set them up with learning the note names, learning the fingers, learning the rhythms. And the fact that we only have to learn quarter notes and quarter rests for a long time is really cool.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
it's definitely because I mean, I know some of the band books start with the whole notes and,
yeah.
yeah.
So there's a lot from like the band side where I was used to having to do so much rhythm and note, just like hammering it into them at the very
Right.
beginning because everyone's different. So we have all these different tips and tricks and different things to get them comfortable with that and be a little bit more independent at
Mhm.
first. And so now with orchestra, I've kind of got the same system set up. And then, now that we're reading and playing, it's like, oh, it's simple now. I just have two or three things to think about. And those systems that I've kind of like, helped me be efficient in band have helped us be like super efficient at orchestra.
Yeah.
And now kind of battling what you're saying is like that time goes pretty fast. So
Yeah.
we're doing, different note reading exercises or rhythm exercises, trying to find some time to do bow hold exercises. And still get to playing some music and reading and doing other
Right.
things.
Yeah, because you got to keep them interested too, and
Yeah,
motivated. Yeah, for sure.
but yeah, at the end of the day, like there are there are some things that I think with band um, have helped, and then there's other things where uh, it's still just music, So
Right.
there's a lot of things that are just like, oh, we're still doing fundamentals, and then we're doing this, and then we're doing music. But um, it's just a couple of efficiency things, that I think have really helped me. Like, hey, the same things I did in band, I'm still using them over here in orchestra. I'm in D major instead of B flat now. So
Sharps are better. I mean, they are.
I don't know,
That's funny.
it's six and one, half and it's the other.
In percussion land, you didn't really worry about that as much. I mean, what did you guys in percussion? When you did beginning percussion, you were playing in B flat with the band, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Which
it's
isn't
funny because at Barber we have a really good amount of students that double, and we allow them to do double instruments, so they can do band
oh
and orchestra.
wow. Okay.
And so I've actually got like in my top eighth grade orchestra, I've got probably like four or five percussionists, and it was just this week they were sitting there warming up and getting their stuff out, and they were talking about like, oh yeah, C major is really hard, but B flat's so easy. And I was like, or they maybe said the opposite. And I was like,
Okay.
I disagree. Like, as a percussionist, I think C major on a keyboard is really hard because
Oh,
it's just straight up and down the natural notes. There's no kind of roadmap.
right.
But with E flat or with anything with flats or sharps or accidentals as a percussionist, we love it because now we kind of have this like up and down. We have a roadmap.
Okay.
It
That makes
breaks up the
sense.
keyboard a little bit, and it's kind of weird to describe.
Yeah.
It gives us a little bit more of a pattern to kind of see and visualize instead of just like they're all open, don't miss.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and so I always feel like um, for percussion and mallet players, like the C major scale is the same as like trying to play a string instrument and find the right note on the fingerboard, the right spot to put the finger on the fingerboard. Like
Wow.
more often than not, you're probably going to find the right spot, especially if you have tapes. But if you have no tapes, good luck, don't miss.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So there's some stuff, um, we do learn, B flat at the beginning with the band, and then you learn, as you get older that honestly, like as a percussionist, I prefer not reading key signatures because there's so much of like advanced percussion literature that's
Yeah.
atonal and all this sort of nonsense. And so we just have like accidentals and flats and sharps mixed up everywhere. Um, that, I think it kind of almost like a piano player, like our brain just kind of breaks a little bit and we're just used to going like, whatever the clef is, whatever the note is, I'll
Yeah.
play it,
Just
you
just
know?
bring it.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's
but
awesome. Yeah. You wonder why there's not more music out there that just they would just write, because they would take away the key signature, just write accidentals in, but
yeah,
it's
but,
definitely an
and
easier way to learn.
it's something that I think with band and with orchestra, and I'm interested to see how this works out with orchestra. Like, especially in middle school teaching, it's so hit or miss with whether or not kids really truly understand key signatures. And you teach it, and it's kind of like throwing something at the wall and hoping it sticks with a lot of kids.
Hmm.
And so there's times where I'm like, man, if we could just have the accidentals there, I bet you so many kids would miss it less, or and then you see, I think this goes back to kind of our publishing talk, like people that write in third violin parts. And it's like, well, why don't we examine what we're doing with young literature and go, hey, we're in G, they're probably going to miss the C natural, and they're not going to catch that because they're not going to really look at the key signature. Why don't we write in that courtesy accidental the first time? I think that's something that I see in a lot of string writing that's probably a little more courteous than band writing, is that they're a lot more, hey, this is fourth finger here. This will be, you should really use fourth finger. Or, hey, this is two.
Yeah, well,
You-
maybe it might be. I mean, I know that there's ways to play the same note different ways on wind instruments, but for the most
yeah.
part, a lot of them are kind of standard. So like they're not going to miss a B flat compared to a B natural or C
Yeah.
sharp C natural. Whereas us, we just throw a finger down and it's like where is it?
Well, especially in young literature, in band, I think it's it's pretty standard, like you said. Like, I'm only going to teach a kid probably one way to play that note.
Right.
I might teach them the alternate fingering in high school or maybe in eighth grade when they're a
Right.
little more advanced, and I know they understand it.
Yeah.
But at first, like grade 1, 2 literature, I don't need that. I just need to know, oh, is it high two or is it low two? Okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
So what are some of the things that when you got to your school, like you had to like you redo, or what are some of the things you did? I know that you worked the summer. I know I worked the summer to, clean up and clean
Yeah.
instruments and see what you had, I mean, you got to take inventory and kind of like what's here, and what are some of the things that you had to do when
So
you did a lot of.
I'm still kind of picking up the pieces with this a little bit. It's something that I wasn't. Uh, it took longer to get into the building than I wanted to. The last program I took over with the middle school band, pretty much I got hired and they're like, okay, here's an alarm code, here's the keys, you
That
can
was
open up whenever you want
that
to.
was
Good
me.
luck, have fun,
Yeah.
do your thing. And when I got to Barber, they were like, well, we really don't give out keys or anything until pre-planning. So if you want to come in, you can come in. There will be someone here on the weekdays during the summer between these hours.
Yeah.
Um,
That limited you a little bit.
Say it again.
Sorry, it limited you a little bit to what you
Yeah,
wanted to do.
it did.
Yeah.
And so I was able to go in a couple days, but with, the different traveling and stuff that I did this summer, I only got maybe 4 or 5 days up there. And it was honestly mostly just kind of going through the office and clearing out the bookshelf and putting my stuff in there and going, okay, he left a whole bunch of handouts on this. Let me look through this. What's useful here? And kind of digging through it. And I told him too, when he was cleaning his office out and cleaning out the room, he said, what do you want me to do to prepare? And I said, well, take all your stuff out, and clean the room and put the instruments back in the lockers and do inventory and stuff, kind of normal end of the year. But if you think there's anything that you're cleaning out that might be useful, just leave it. And
Right.
so what I spent a lot of time over the summer doing was just going through those papers, going through the binders that he left and different stuff. And it was kind of like, I felt like I was on a treasure hunt. I was like, all right, he left this. Why is this useful? What did he use it for? What can I learn from this about how to teach orchestra?
Yeah.
And it was
Sure.
kind of like finding clues about, okay, this is what's really important. Same reason I went to the Ohio State and the Michigan stuff was
Yeah.
try to find out what are those things that no one's going to tell me. If I pick up the phone and call you, you might say, hey, watch out to make sure that they don't collapse their wrist, or hey, make sure they're doing, this, that, or the other. But you're not going to say, oh, well, here's really how I sequence rhythms in
Yeah.
my classroom in this grade
Yeah.
level. So I was looking for that kind of stuff, and probably maybe just because of a time issue, but also maybe just ignorantly, I was like, oh, well, he did inventory, and the instruments are in their cases, and they're on the racks, and they're in the lockers. He said everything's there. We should be good to go. There's a couple instruments over here that he said need to be repaired. I'll send those off. But it wasn't until pre-planning that I got in. And again, it was one of those things I didn't know what I didn't know. We did a lot in Michigan and at Ohio State about just here's what you need to look for in terms of repairs. Here's what you need to look for strings. You probably don't want to buy these. You want to get, some helicords for your basses or things like that. And I was like, okay, now I'm armed with more information.
Sure.
So when I came into pre-planning, I started looking down every cello and bass on the rack, and I was like, oh, all the bridges are like angled up to the sky.
Yeah.
And the end pins are stuck here and they're caked in dirt. And
Mm-hmm.
so I spent probably most of my pre-planning honestly just going back through the inventory, and going, all right, what needs to be fixed? What's been neglected a little bit? What's maybe been lower on the priority list?
Yeah.
And then I called the previous director. Me and him had a really good relationship, and
Good.
still do. And he's fortunately kind of very available. He's like, call me anytime and let me know. Happy to answer any questions. So we talked, and he was like, yeah, we've been doing some stuff with the cellos for a while, but I kind of neglected the basses a little bit, and they haven't gotten new strings or a new bridge or anything for
Mm-hmm.
years.
Yeah.
So
Well, it takes
that ate up
time.
a lot of time.
It definitely takes time
to.
to. I'm sorry, I was gonna say it definitely takes time to get all that together, and unless you have unlimited funds, you can't do it all at once either.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and fortunately, he left me with some money, and
good.
so I was able to kind of prioritize, like, all right, we're not going to get all the bases done right now. We'll get some of them done, and just have enough, for like a class set for when the kids come in.
Yeah.
We're chipping away at it a little bit at a time, but
Yep.
yeah, it's still not where I want it to be. There's still a lot of old posters on the wall, or different things that are still in the room that I just haven't had a chance to get to.
Yeah.
And it's kind of becoming one of those. You know, I'm spending maybe an hour or so a week, between planning or a little bit before school and going in and cleaning out. Like, all right, I'm going to take care of this drawer today.
There
All
you
right, I'm
go.
going to take care of this. And we're slowly chipping away at it, but it takes time.
That's a good message too, because so many of us stress about trying to get everything done, and what we have to remember is it's going to be there tomorrow, and we can
Yeah.
do a little bit tomorrow, do a little bit more, like you said, and we can't stress out. We got to balance what we're doing.
Yeah. Well,
Definitely.
and especially being alone, I was used to being in a program where I had 400 kids in the band, and it was me, and I had an assistant, and so I felt like I had so much more free time, to be able to answer my emails and take care of
Yeah.
administrative things or financial things. And then I also had time while maybe she started class to go and pull out these bass clarinets that I need to rent, or to go and send this off, or talk to the repair guy that
Hmm.
showed up today.
Hmm.
And now it's like it's all me all the time. So
Yeah.
just being really, really good with my time, and you know, there's trade-offs. Talking about the difference between band and orchestra, I thought I dodged a huge bullet of, oh man, I don't have to do instrument fittings anymore. I don't have to like try to convince kids that clarinet's better than saxophone, or whatever. It's just, oh, okay, well, you like the violin? Well, let's play violin.
Yeah.
And I was like, I saved so much time in that process.
Yeah.
And then I got to the day where I had to tape all the instruments. Uh,
Oh yeah.
and so, I had to prioritize. Like, I had to shift from taking care of setting up the room and doing things to get it where I wanted to go, all right, I don't have time for that. Now I've got to stay after today and spend 2 hours taping 50 violins.
Yep. Yep.
Um, and then I'm still dealing with like that trickling of kid got their instrument late, and now so I've got three violins and a viola to do today after school, and I also need to go and check out this other instrument over here.
Yeah.
The list is ongoing, and it changes a little bit every day, and I go, just prioritizing. All right, I have to get this done, and then I'll try to get that drawer done.
Right. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. No, it's hard to get you. We can't get it all done at one time. I'm discovering the same thing. So I just realized like it's gonna be there tomorrow. I will be back. I'll plug away at it again.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think probably what most of us, are dealing with now after the pandemic is everyone's realizing I need to have better work-life balance, and I feel like you can't avoid that anywhere you look in the media or anyone you talk to these days. And I'm certainly the same way. I used to be like, oh, it's fine. I'll just stay until 7 o'clock tonight, 4 nights this week. And now I'm like, all right, no, it's all right. School ended at 4:30. It's 5:15. I need to go.
Yeah.
I spent 45 extra minutes doing stuff. I'll spend, another time. Well, I'll take care of this during bus call tomorrow. Let me try to be smarter with my time during that,
Yeah.
or whatever. But it'll always be there, and as long
Right.
as you're just staying one day ahead, or making sure you've got that instrument tape for the kid the next morning, you're still good to go. So
Yeah.
just prioritizing and then going, all right, I got to go home.
Yeah. Well, you got some of your time back. Not in a shorter commute now.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
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 It's
Yeah.
like 20 minutes instead of an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's huge. And I'm 9 minutes instead of 40 plus. So it's the same, and so now I just feel like I'm a lot less stressed out, one, but two, time I was spending in the car, now I'm able to like get work done, and
yeah,
so that's it's a huge thing, really, really
but
important.
and my wife, she's a huge morning person. I am not a morning
Okay.
person. But she gets up and goes for a run at like 5 in the morning, and
That's me.
is showered and feeds the dogs and is out the door before I even wake up. And I'm noticing that, like, okay, well, I used to wake up at 7 o'clock, and it took me all the way until 8:45 to get to work. But now I can wake up at 7 o'clock and I can still get there by 7:45 or 8 o'clock, and I've got 45 extra minutes in the morning to plan and do things now. So
It's huge. It's huge.
it, it's so much, yeah. It's like, wow, I can have a little bit more of a life, and I can prioritize and
Yep.
still get things done.
So it
So
doesn't always, it doesn't always work out where people have that opportunity, but if there's a good, a good opportunity and a good position for you to move into that, um, you know, I love my former school very much, but I know that I'm in a great situation now, and a lot of opportunities there, and for my family and for myself, it's life changing. Really, it really is.
yeah, well,
So
and I said the same thing. I think question one in my interview at Barber was, tell us about yourself, right? And question two is, all right, so why do you want to work here? Why do you want to be an orchestra teacher now?
yeah,
And I said, like, honestly, and I mean this, I was really happy with my program, same as you were. I can't hack the commute anymore. It's taken up way too much of my life. And I want to get some of my life back. And so I think it's a really great opportunity. But I told him, if my band program was somehow picked up and transplanted to Cobb County, I'd still be there.
yeah.
But
Well, it's the same. It's the same. But
yeah, and my principal was really, really supportive at the time. He's like, "Look, I've done that. I had an hour plus commute at a certain time, and you've been here for years. He's like, honestly, I'm surprised you're still here."
yeah, yeah,
So he's like,
yeah,
I knew it was coming eventually,
yeah.
but
Well,
yeah.
fantastic. How about last thing? Maybe what are some of your big goals going forward? You have some like long term things that you'd like to see with your program or yourself or your PD or whatever.
Yeah, I think one of my big goals, and I think this is paramount anytime you take over a program, is just year one for me is all about foundation laying
Mm,
and relationship building. You
there you go.
know, and I think it's especially the second time around taking over a program, I've realized just how much more important that relationship piece is just from day one. And
Hmm.
I think out of my six classes, I've got like five of them kind of bought in pretty well, and some really, really great kids. And then there's one class that I'm still working on, and
Yeah.
um, every day it's like, all right, I'm going to pick one kid today. I'm going to ask him about, what do you do in your free time? Oh, you're a softball player. Okay, let me get one more piece of a relationship built there. All right, that didn't work with that kid. Okay, let me see. Maybe they're more academically oriented. Let me give them more praise in rehearsal today, and just chipping away at finding how it is that I'm going to reach that kid. What makes that kid tick each day until every kid in the program knows that I care about them. And if you can do that in year one, um, they're going to be way more willing to work with you,
Oh,
and then you
sure.
can work on building that foundation of technique. And here's what I want my program to look like, and here's what I want to do. And I'm not really right now. I'm not really looking past this year.
Yeah.
I'm going to focus internally. I'm going to focus on making sure the kids are happy, they're getting better, they know I care about them, and laying a good, foundation. And then next year, go reassess and go, all right, this is where we're at. Now let me look down the line and kind of determine what I want to be 2 years or 3 years from now. But right now, I'm still taking stock, taking inventory, building relationships, and
Yep.
um, yeah,
Yeah, you don't do too much the first year, and my thoughts are trying to go with what I was given, and not change everything, but
yeah.
be able to make some small things happen throughout the year, and but like you said, it's all about those relationships and getting kids and parents and other teachers, admin on board with what you're doing, and
Well, and I think it's compromised a lot of times. There are a lot of things that are not the way I would want them to be, but um, I find myself, especially the last couple of weeks, now that we're rehearsing music and kind of getting into it, those kids are used to a certain process of how they rehearse. And so, just being really honest with them, like, hey, I'm not the last guy. I'm going to do things differently, just like you and your best friend. There's a lot of things that you have in common. Some things are different. It doesn't make them better or worse, but they're just different. So,
yeah,
you give me a fair shake, and if I ask you to do something weird, just give it a shot. But I'm also meeting them halfway. Like, um, I was having a really hard time with, all right, get the instruments up, get ready to go, let's play. And they were like, I probably hit my head against the wall on this for like a week and a half. Then I finally went, what are you used to doing? And they're like, oh, well, he would say instruments up, and then he would say set, and that's when we brought the bow up, and that's what we do. I'm like, all right, cool, we'll do that then, you know.
Mhm.
And it's just, you know, it's compromise. Like there are some things that aren't that important that it has to be my way.
Right.
Uh, so
Yeah.
yeah, and it makes the kids happier, and we're moving more efficiently now, so it's great.
That's fantastic. I love what I'm hearing, and it's just great to see you so excited about the new venture. And we had talked a lot this summer, but it sounds like it's going really, really well, and I'm
Yeah,
super happy for you and excited for what's gonna come out of your program there. And
yeah.
that's
Well,
great, and
thanks
it's
so
great
much.
that we're in the same county. I'm excited to be with you, so we'll be
Yeah,
able to.
it's fun. I'm excited. You know, I walked away yesterday and I was like, I like my job a lot. This is cool. This is pretty fun. So
Orchestra's the best. So, well, Adam, hey, thanks so much for being on here today and sharing, your experiences. And for those of our listeners who are maybe not the string majors, uh, hopefully this was helpful. I will post Adam's email up if into the description of the podcast and the YouTube broadcast as well. So if you have any questions, you can call them or email them or whatever, and talk about all the great things that are going on in the string world, and compare notes, because the as we know, the best things happen from when we work together and we learn together, and we borrow and steal together. That's what it's all about. So
absolutely.
yeah.
Thanks so much for having me, Charles.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. And we'll see all of you guys next time on the Orchestra Teacher Podcast. Have a great weekend and enjoy the long weekend. You gotta love it.